Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to another deck tech. Now, this is going to be the first half of a double feature. So in this video, we're doing Rolgers or Red Soldiers, and then tomorrow, I'm going to be covering a green variant. It's a little less soldier-like, but still that same kind of core. So we'll start with the red one. Now, why soldiers? That's an interesting question. And how to put this? So basically, this is to do with the fact that a lot of decks I've been playing recently have been green decks, like base green. So I wanted to see what I could do with another aggro color. Now, Dominion implants probably not where you want to be right now because, well, the Wisdom Dominion set is probably just better from a mid-range deck. So that took it out. Order does fit in nicely with Dominion for the Priest new set. That's again another mid-range deck. You can go Mono Priests, but Mono Priest is probably just worse than Dominion Priests, if you see where I'm going with this. So, when you're looking at Conquest lineups, which is what I do a lot of the time, you're looking at different ways of using different colors, and we end up in a situation where you can't play Wisdom Dominion and Order Dominion because of that overlap. It's a big overlap as well. You can't use any of the other ramp stuff as well because you all need it in one deck now. But, well, if you go Wisdom Dominion instead of Order Dominion, you've got Order free. So what do you do with Order? So I thought, okay, let's have a look at some base Order decks. And I think I've come up with some pretty decent options. So we'll start with the red version. Now, this is a Soldier's deck, so we're using basic Alexa. Now, her ability is 1 mana, 2 turn cooldown. If you have another creature, you can summon a George. You can summon a Militia. George the Militia does a lot of work in this deck. Now, there's a lot of soldier synergy. In fact, most of the cards in this deck are either soldiers or benefit soldiers directly. So, why soldiers? Now, soldiers have two, arguably three main engines behind them. Well, four, but that's a bit more of a hybrid thing. Got Knight Recruiter, which is probably the weakest of them. 3 mana, 1/1 Knight. When you play it, you get a militia, so you get an extra militia, and it gets +1/+1 for each soldier on your front line. Very vulnerable to AoE, a little low on power level if you don't get it down on turn 3 routinely, which can lead to some issues, and that's why we're only playing 2. However, that is the weakest of the soldier engines. Next, we have Master Tactician. The Tactician is really what this deck is built around. 3 mana, 2 level card, 3/3, 2 speed. Another Knight, and other soldiers on the same line as Master Tactician get +1/+1. Now, random thing about the text. So, Master Tactician used to be a soldier himself, which is why other is in the name, even though he's not a soldier anymore. So, basically, it doesn't do anything. It does mean they don't buff each other, which is a... Well, yeah, so it doesn't buff each other, which leads to a few issues if you draw too many. But, you still want 4, you're not... I mean, there aren't any other cards at this mana slot in this deck, so you really want 4 of them. It's what the deck's built around. There's so much soldier swarming. The hero power is a soldier as well, so soldiers everywhere. Then we've got Insignia of the Sun, which is a draw engine based on creature type. Another 3 mana, 2 level card, 2 energy. At the end of your turn, if the enemy hero was dealt combat damage, you get 1 more energy. And you can spend an energy and exhaust to look at top 3 and put a soldier or knight, which means every single creature in the deck gets hit, from them in your hand. That's incredible. It also has a second ability, channeling, so you can use Insignia of the Sun to pay for the mana costs of any creature in your deck. That's pretty sick. Now, this often gets played on curve with a 2 mana creature, or it gets played later on for some draw power, and it helps you keep momentum up, which is very, very important. If you get an Insignia down, you hit them a few times, and then you're drawing cards, and it becomes difficult for them to stabilize against that surge of momentum. Now, the last soldier synergy in this deck is the strongest. Soldier's Memorial, so it's a skill shrine for 2 levels, 1 mana, 2 turn cooldown, which is really, really cheap on all fronts. Put a soldier card from your graveyard on the bottom and put a Might Emblem on an allied creature. This is amazing. It's one of the best skill shrines in the whole game, and it's tribal focused, so you can only play it in soldiers. Soldier's Memorial is, in my opinion, the reason to play soldiers in general. Not just in a soldier deck, but just the shrine is amazing. And it helps buff you out of so many situations, and is basically a combat trick in a lot of situations, because you use Soldier's Memorial, and then you can attack over things you wouldn't normally be able to. So, that's the reasons we're playing soldiers. On to the soldiers. We've got Steel Host Spearman, 1/1, 3 speed, 1 drop, ranged while defending. The text for this sometimes comes up in aggro mirror matches, but in general, 1 drop, early soldier, benefits the rest of your synergies, and later on becomes a Might Emblem because of the shrine. For the 2 drops, we have 3 2 drops. Dwarven's Spellbreaker, 2 mana, 2/2, 2 speed. Gets +1 speed as long as the enemy hero controls a spell, and whenever you deal combat damage to the enemy hero, you can destroy a spell they control. Narrow effect, I'll be honest. Most of the time, this is just a 2/2, 2 speed. However, there's another 2/2, 2 speed soldier in this deck, which is Steel Knot Innkeeper. Now, the split between these two. So, Steel Knot Innkeeper's effect is you can pay an extra mana to stupefy an enemy creature, which gets rid of all of its text, which is actually quite a powerful ability. And when you enter play, you can shuffle 5 creature cards from your opponent's graveyard into the deck, which occasionally comes up. Now, in previous metagames, I would have said Innkeeper is better universally. However, it turns out there's actually quite a few just innocuous spells flying around right now, including things like Guardian. Now, Guardian of Balance is a spell, which means even if it's a creature, your Spellbreaker gets 3 speed, and if it hits them, will kill the Guardian, which means they have to use their Guardian to kill your Spellbreaker, which is not exactly high value in terms of a target. They don't really want to spend their Guardian activation to kill a 2-drop. So, Spellbreaker is quite good against Guardian, and it also is good against Wilderness Guardian. A lot of Guardians now I think about it. Twilight Guardian, there's a few Guardians roaming around. So, it has kind of innocuous value that shows up here and now, whereas Innkeeper doesn't have as many targets as you'd expect. Keep in mind, to get its extra effect, you need an extra mana. Now, the last 2-drop is actually the one I like the most right now, Temple Guard. 2 mana, 3/1 protected. 1 speed though, that's very low. It's the lowest in fact. Convert each Might Emblem put on Temple Guard into a Shield Emblem. This is both an upside and a downside. It's kind of weird to deal with sometimes. So basically, it can't be targeted by Selena, it can't be targeted, well, by anything, which helps a lot. It will always trade. Now, against 1-drops, that's a bad thing, but it also means it will attack through a lot of stuff. And with CFC, that we'll get to later, it's a 4/2, 2 speed, which will usually just kill something. Well, it'll trade up, basically. So Temple Guard actually is quite handy for that, and there are ways of getting Might Emblems in this deck through the Shrine and Century of Light. So occasionally the Shield Emblem comes up, gives you a little bit of extra versatility against red decks. Now, one more soldier in the deck. There actually aren't that many soldiers in this deck, it's just that you get them all early game. Elite Vanguard, the most vanilla creature. 2 mana, 2 levels, 3/3, 2 speed. Good game. Like, solid stats, early point in the curve, usually the biggest thing down at that point in the game. Soldier synergy. It's great. It's a good card, not very exciting, but surprisingly useful. Now, we do have a few other creatures in this deck. We've got the 2 supporting knights. We have Century of Light, which is the other 1-drop in this deck. 0/1, Valor 1. Now, Valor meaning you can put a Might Emblem on an allied creature. It can target itself, so it can be a 1/2, 2 speed. I think that rarely happens. Well, okay, it does happen, but it's rarely what you want to be doing. I'll put it that way. However, it's an extra 1-drop, which is important for the hero power, because if you draw double 1-drop in this deck, it effectively becomes triple 1-drop, because you can go 1-drop and then turn to another 1 and hero power. So you basically have a triple 1-drop built into the deck. So you want the extra 1-drops, and the +1 Might Emblem is surprisingly good. And it's a 0-1 body, which really messes up with combat later on in the game. So Century of Light is actually pretty good. It also means that there's a Might Emblem in the deck that can be got off Insignia, which is surprisingly useful. Now, the last creature in the deck is the ever-present, ever-powerful CFC, the Cavalry Field Captain. 2 mana, 2 levels, 2/2, 3 speed, good stats for the level. It is a knight, and when you play Cavalry Field Captain, another creature you control gets +1, +1, +1 until end of turn. Now, CFC is just amazing. It allows you to sneak through lethals by bumping up your speed beyond blocking. It lets you turn trades into favorable attacks. It lets you turn bad attacks into trades. It's just incredible. It's an incredible card. Just looking at the sheer stat value it gives you, it's 3/3. It's effectively 3/3/3 speed, but with the extra speed boost on the thing you target, which is so much better than anything else. The downside is if you don't have a target for it, then it's a 2/2/3 speed, which is not great, and also the 1/1 wears off at the end of turn. Now, there is one other thing to note with CFC, which is Militia. Now, Militia has a trait where, so if I just pull up the hero here, it has 1 speed, but if its attack is greater than 1, it goes to 2 speed. Now, because of the way this works, well, I say 2 speed, it gains a speed. Because of the way this works, it means CFC actually turns it into a 3-speed attacker, which is surprisingly hard to deal with sometimes. So a 1/1 with 1 speed becomes a 2/2 with 3. So CFC, massive synergy with the Lonely Militia. So that's all the creatures. Now onto the spells. So, Guards. Now, Guards is 2 mana, instant spell. Summon 2 Militia, and ally Militia have 3 speed until end of turn. This is primarily a defensive combat trick, but if you have other Militia in play, it buffs all of them as well, and keep in mind with Tactician, they're all 2/2s. So, Guards, more applications than you think. The other thing this gets used for is summoning Guards end of turn, and then playing Tactician to kind of get a bit of sort of swift damage, for lack of a better term. So you do have to be careful against soldiers where they have 4 mana open, and they've got double Guards, that's potentially 8 damage coming in, so watch yourself. So Guards, amazing spell. Now, why are we playing red? We're playing red for removal. I was trying Massive Assault for a while, but it was a bit clunky. So now we're just down to removal spells. 4 Fireball, 3 Cannonade. Now, the Fireballs are direct damage, which is very handy, helps you finish out the game. And also, it lets you deal with stuff on the back row and also kill stuff early game, which is very nice. There's a surprising amount of stuff Fireball kills. So, yeah, very handy. And the fact that it's instant means that if you have a slow early game, you can often Fireball something end of their turn to gain the tempo back. Now, Cannonade. This is an interesting one. Cannonade versus Fire Blast. Cannonade is 3 mana, 2 levels, put a target emblem on an enemy creature, and then the enemy hero has to distribute 4 damage. And it's basically anything with a target emblem takes double damage. There's a few tricks with Cannonade, namely if your opponent has a 4 HP creature and a 2 HP creature, you can target emblem the 4 health creature, and it will kill both. So they have to assign, because the 2 damage on the 4 HP creature will double. So they have to assign 4 damage to their big creature, which they don't want to do. The other thing Cannonade lets you do is deal with Selena and Guardian efficiently. Fire Blast simply can't kill 4 HP creatures, Cannonade does. And there are a few 1 HP creatures in this deck, but not that many. Selena's a problem because it makes your board smaller and then blocks stuff. It doesn't tend to kill as many things in soldiers because anything with 1 health usually doesn't stay at 1 health for very long. However, if you can't kill it, there's the problem. And you don't have access to combat tricks apart from CFC, basically. So it's quite difficult to attack through. Cannonade is a clean answer. very clean answer to Selena, and that's the reason it's in the deck instead of Fire Blast. Well, Selena, Guardian, Garamesh, all the 4 HP creatures, which are just notably very hard to deal with. But anyway, so that's the Red Soldiers deck. Now, in terms of a few sort of other options, Touch of Light is a little low on the value, which is why I didn't bother with it. You can mess around with the 2-drop counts. If you're facing a lot more aggro, you probably don't want to play Temple Guards as highly. You want some of the other 2-drops. Facing less spells, more abilities, go Steel Nors, play around with how many Night Recruiters you want to play. I'm at 2 right now, but it started at 4. Not really sure what the exact number you want for that is. In terms of other stuff, Arrow Barrage is an interesting alternative to Cannonade if you'd rather go more in the mono soldiers instead of 2-color soldiers. You do get a consistency boost for doing mono soldiers, so there's a benefit there. Symbol of Faith, again, not as much value as I would particularly like out of a deck like this. Ray of Righteousness, I don't really like access to this kind of stuff. I think Cannonade also serves as an ability to go wide a bit in terms of if you're against multiple small creatures, Cannonade will kill all of them. But Ray instead of Cannonade is an interesting alternative. Now, the card you may actually want to test out a bit is Companion of Heavens. Companion of Heavens is a card that I've been playing a lot in other sort of green or blue versions of soldiers because they use a lot more might emblems, but I think Companion is genuinely very powerful. The reason I'm not playing it in this deck is because I think when you're playing Rage Soldiers, you want to go for maximum speed in terms of, like, you want to finish the game as fast as possible. But Companion, not that bad in terms of an option. It's a lot of stats over a wide area, so Companion's actually pretty solid. There's a few other things you can look at, obviously. There's Fire Blast, Massive Assault. There are options. Tinker around with the deck. I certainly have. Still not 100% on whether or not I think this is the particular best version of it, but yeah, experiment, try stuff you like, see what works. But anyway, so that's been Red Soldiers. Now, I actually quite like the deck. Did quite well with it on ladder. I generally only do deck techs of decks that I think are reasonably strong. I don't really want to put out decks that just aren't good. If I find a fun one, like with spirits, that is playable as well, I will happily do deck techs on them. But I always like trying to make sure decks actually work before I get them out to you guys. But anyway, as for now, if you'd like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or ask me any questions, put it in the comment section or just ask me on Discord. I'm pretty much always on. Deck is in the description as an image as usual. But as now, it's been Jotto, signing off.